Welcome to yet another episode of the Snakes and Ladders Startup Show. Today's episode is part 3 of the thematic episode on growth hacks that we had initiated. As a founder, you have not only used growth hacks, but you have learned the hard way of how some growth hacks deliver awesome results and how some growth hacks possibly just fizzle out. Today's episode is going to talk a lot about growth hacks from the perspective of some very eminent qualified experts and investors in terms of what they have seen in their journeys, in their interactions with different startup founders. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Shantanu Chaturvedi, who's a VP with Transition VC, a gentleman with 8 years of experience, an electrical electronics engineer himself, was heading the technology at iCreate. We also have our next guest, who's Kishore Kumar, who's the head of brand intelligence and Accelerator program at Big Basket. With over 20 years of experience across ITC, Spencer, Big Basket, Kishore brings rich experience across e-commerce, rural retailing, and modern trade. He also runs a YouTube channel called LSD Life School Diaries, where he reviews books and shares the wisdom of the world with the viewers. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Shantanu and Kishore to today's episode. As you know, we launched a segment called Roll the Dice a few segments back. I'm going to ask the viewers to have a look at Roll the Dice segments right away. As founders, you have watched a couple of episodes of the Snakes and Ladders, but I'm sure there must be a thought crossing your mind about a snake lurking out there or some ladder you would love to see getting manifested. If you have some such question, you could now send your question to us via a small video recording, not more than 45 seconds, which you could just put on a Google Drive and send to us. And we will try and see if we can get you the answer. We'll also try and see if we can get an investor or an expert to answer that question for you and feature your question in the next episode. Just one suggestion. Please don't make impossible demands like, oh, you know what? I want to speak to Mr. Elon Musk. Or can you please get me Mr. Ratan Tata? Or Vijay Shekhar Sharma Hazir Ho. Ain't happening. But if your questions are more like we have just embarked, finished the MVP, not sure whether we should go down the B2B route or the B2C route, or we are a food tech or an ed tech startup, and we aren't able to get investor conversations or investor meetings, what do you think we should do differently? Or maybe we are a pre-series A startup or a series A startup, and different investors are telling us different things about what we should be doing. What do you think is the way out? Those kind of questions, bring them on. But remember one thing, the answer to every question you have not asked is always a no. So question bhej do, just send it across in our section called Roll the Dice. As they say in that famous Hindi song, Dao laga le bhai, dao laga le. Before we jump into the episode, I'm going to refresh your memory by showing you some bites from part 1 of the Growth Hacks episode.
So part of the problem was also because we are creating a structure where nothing existed.
And one of the other snake, taking an example which a team solves out there, is basically your governance. Because if you have a right team, right governance would be in place, right strategies would be made into mind, because it's not a thing like a student project.
So one of the anticipated snakes was that this is an industry which has operated in an archaic manner for many, many years, 50, 60 years now.
Now, we in our minds were very clear the marketplace has to have rates because we have to have comparison. I mean, otherwise, how will somebody book anything?
With the recap of part 1, let's jump straight into the episode of Growth Hacks. Shantanu, welcome to the Snakes and Ladders Startup Show.
Hi, Sachin. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the invite. Thank you so much for having me speak here.
Shantanu, would you like to share any example of a snake that impeded growth?
So, when you say a snake is effectively something that is preventing growth, a lot of times when I'm speaking to startups, and typically we work in the deep tech domain where the startups that we work with are B2B focused. So, them understanding the simple concept of a MVP is something that I see them preventing growth. I see that as something that can so easily be done, which can actually enable them to go to market faster and actually start generating revenue faster, start bringing more seriousness to the company faster. And MVP, like we all know, is a minimum viable product. So the definition of for an early stage startup of what is the first product that they will take to market, what is going to be the specifications, what is going to be the features, the functionality of that product, and who's going to be the customer, why will they use it. So very simple definitions, very simple questions of the MVP, if defined very very clearly, can actually enable a much faster go to market and much faster product market fit discovery, much faster revenue generation than typical startups today.
Mhm. What else comes to your mind as a myth or a mindset that becomes a snake for young founders?
So I would also say another snake that comes to my mind is inadequate market discovery. So a lot of times, what startups believe is that they can't go to market without a product. So I respectfully disagree there. What can be done? So if I'm an idea stage, if I'm an early stage, concept stage startup, if I don't have a product, what I can very rapidly do is actually build something called a virtual product. So with so many technologies and softwares today, I can build what my product would look like virtually. I can write a set of list of features and the specifications virtually, and I can estimate a reasonable amount to a reasonable degree what the cost of the selling price of the product could be. And having this, I can take this to potential customers and start asking them very simple questions. Would you buy this? Would you not buy this? If you would buy this, why would you buy this? What is the value proposition that you see? If you don't buy this, what is again the reason that's preventing you from buying this? What this enables is very very good, very very adequate market discovery, very very adequate product market fit discovery, which again enables a whole reduction of time and money wasted on prototyping, on actually developing a product which perhaps no one needs. So before you actually start making a product, before you actually start spending money on a product, what you can do is sort of virtually build your product and just try to gauge from the customer whether this is something that is viable, this is something that will work, this is something that is needed in the market. Because a whole lot of times we see startups trying to build something that may not be needed in the market, or the customer may not have the willingness or the ability to pay for it. So things like this, very simple hacks, very simple tricks like this can enable much faster product market fit, and this sort of gives confidence to every stakeholder involved: the founders themselves, the customers, the early adopters, the early supporters of the company, incubators, investors. Everyone is far more confident. And so, if then after that, if you go to any incubator or investor and say, "Yes, I've spoken to 100 people and they agreed that this is something that they need, that this is something that they're willing to pay for. I have the expertise to build it. Now give me the funds to build it." I think that makes for a much smarter VC pitch, even at a pre-seed or a seed stage level. So I think that is something which can be very easily done.
Terrific. Shantanu, is there an example of a ladder that you would like to share?
So I would say there are various things. When you talk about ladders, there are various things. There are a lot of times that things can work to your advantage while you sort of least expect them. Ladders. One thing I would like to say is the ability to generate interest, the ability to generate actual confidence with the customer. Sometimes your sales cycles are very, very long. Sometimes your payment cycles are very, very long. Sometimes it takes a lot of effort to convince the customer to actually pay for the product. What at that time helps is an actual demonstration, an actual pilot, or an actual sort of experience of the product. Um, when the sales cycle is very, very long, people are hesitant to pay for it. I mean, and then the simple solution is that you build it, you pilot it for them with some confidence that they will eventually purchase it, with some assurances that they will eventually purchase it, and enable the pilot to happen through your own funds. Perhaps it is going to be paid in the early days. A startup may not be able to make profits out of it, maybe even loss making, even for a B2B company, maybe even loss making by selling product at a much cheaper cost. But what that enables is customer stickiness. What that enables is customer to actually experience the problem that they're facing, and actually the solution that is warranted through this uh, solution.
This is very interesting. Could you expand on this concept of capex deployment as a model of growth hack or a ladder for the benefit of our viewers?
So, free pilots, or sometimes very interesting capitalization models, or very interesting funding models to enable to reduce the barrier of entry that a customer faces. So, I came across this very interesting um, capitalization solution, which is called a energy efficiency as a service model. So if you are a big industry, and if you've got like multiple old motors that you're running for maybe the last 20 years, the last 30 years, technology has improved. So you can install motors today that will be 10, 20, 30% more efficient, and then save a significant amount of electricity. So the funding model here is that the capex is, sorry, capitalized upfront by a third party entity, and the savings in energy or the savings in electricity are shared with the customer and the person that is enabling the capital deployment, the capex deployment. So to the customer, he doesn't really have to do much, he just has to enjoy the benefits of electricity saving. And whereas enough debt capital can be received, or various types of instruments of capital can be received to enable such a deployment. So reducing, again, this leads to reducing the barrier, the entry barrier of paying the initial capital amount for the capex, and the customer gets to enjoy the benefits without too much risk.
So before I come to Kishore, let me quickly show some bites from part 2 of the thematic episode of growth hacks that we showed earlier.
So part of the problem was also because we are creating a structure where nothing existed.
And one of the other snake, taking an example which a team solves out there, is basically your governance. Because if you have a right team, right governance would be in place, right strategies would be made into mind, because it's not a thing like a student project.
So one of the anticipated snakes was that this is an industry which has operated in an archaic manner for many, many years, 50, 60 years now.
Now, we in our minds were very clear the marketplace has to have rates because we have to have comparison. I mean, otherwise, how will somebody book anything?
Welcome back. My next set of questions are for Kishore. Kishore, welcome to the Snakes and Ladders Startup Show.
Thank you, Sachin, for the kind invite and for having me here. It's an honor to join this discussion. I'm excited to be part of the conversations that combine positivity with valuable insights. Congratulations to you and your team on this great initiative.
Kishore, would you like to share any growth hacks gone bad or poorly executed?
Sure, Sachin. I actually have a couple of examples over here. I remember in one of the cases, a startup misjudged the market size, spending too much in anticipation of rapid growth. When growth didn't meet expectations, it impacted their ability to secure future funding. So getting the market size right and then chasing a particular share of that market size is critical. One other case that I had seen was another startup made the mistake of overhiring instead of addressing core issues. They threw people at problem. They hoped that more staff would boost sales, but without fixing underlying problems, without understanding the root cause, just investing in people could lead you to trouble. And that was the case with one of the startups. So they ended up having higher costs with this additional manpower and no increase in revenue. One other thing that I can recollect is in the case of a fashion startup, when the business tried to prioritize a wider selection of assortment as a goal. So when that was the goal given to the entire team, people started chasing wider selection. Targets and incentives were aligned to achieve these goals. This definitely widened the assortment, but at the cost of quality and other important parameters. When someone has a target OKR or a KRA of getting wider assortment and incentives are structured around it, they just focus on including assortment without looking at various other parameters that they need to look at. So this resulted in a lot of customer returns, poor NPS, and their customer retention numbers kept going down. So these are few mistakes that I have seen that have happened in this space.
Any growth hacks that you would like to share, which were successful, which were executed well?
So we have seen successful hacks here as well. One, in case of one of the startups, we noticed that opening channels, right? That's critical. A startup looked at sales through different channels that helped its business grow steadily over time. It prevented them relying too much on just one channel, so that if something went wrong with one, it did not hurt its business as much. This also ensured stability of their sales growth over a period of time. So opening up multiple channels for any startup is critical, and this is something that I've seen in case of many startups. Another one another example that underscores the significance of for startups is integrating tasks and clearly defining responsibilities, all with the customer's need in the forefront. This was a case of a furniture startup that found that typically other furniture startups used to have a team to deliver, and later there was a team that used to install, right? So the delivery team was just focused on, I finished so many deliveries and moving on, and installation team used to come at its own convenience. So what happened was the customer was unhappy, a packed or a completely unboxed furniture lying in the living room, and no one is coming to install it. So one of these startups understood the problem that needs to be addressed here. They tried to solve by assigning one team that does both delivery and installation, even if it means your number of deliveries come down. So assigning those, understanding the problem and integrating all these things in the backend to ensure that customers' needs are addressed is critical. This is something that I've seen in the case of one of the startups. And the third one, which is highly underestimated, but it is very critical. Sachin, what we have seen at Big Basket is, when a lot of brands come in, we stress on hygiene. We ensure that the foundation is solid by closely working with them. So for a startup brand, it is very important for them to collaborate very closely with the retailer brand. This involves timely delivery of products, exploring all avenues, assets, discoverability, and search assets on the platform, willing to partner with new experiments that are taken up on the any retail media platform or retail e-com platform, fine-tuning targeting strategies, right? Reaching out to different cohorts to optimize their spends, and working with the retail partner, and regularly optimizing the assortment is very critical, because a retailer the retailer brand has limited space. So the brand, the CPG brand or a D2C brand, has to look at a retailer as a partner, and every move should be a win-win for both. So that's why assortment optimization becomes critical for both the sides. Many overlook this as they underestimate the power of simplicity in achieving success. Basic hygiene, supplying on time, optimization, fine-tuning strategies, experimentation, all these things are simple, but most of them miss out when they're doing other things.
Thanks, Kishore. Coming back to Shantanu. Shantanu, any other example of a ladder that you would like to share?
So, a lot of times in India, uh, I mean, as much as we all speak about decarbonization, as much as we all speak about climate change, as much as we all speak about enhancing quality of life at the workplace, at home. Seldom, very rarely, are we willing to actually pay for it till there is a till there is a financial sort of return attached to it. So another ladder is, there are products that enable direct financial returns. There is solar, there is wind, renewable products that enable direct financial return. Then there are things like better technology, better efficiencies through various products that enable indirectly the benefits of financial returns. And then there are significantly indirectly. So maybe setting up a farm or a hydroponic system within the factory gives you returns, enhance quality of air, quality of environment, and in fact, it's known to improve productivity as well. So all of these things, when another ladder is that all of these things, when we are going out to sort of sell or market these products in India, is at least on a B2B space, everything should be looked at from, as much as possible, primarily a financial model, sort of a instrument. So how much of an ROI is this product enabling for me? How much of financial return is this product enabling for me? Because that we see in India is the strongest selling lever. The only thing, or one of the strongest things that Indian industry or B2B companies in India recognize is a financial return. So everything, as much as possible, should be measured according to a financial return. I mean, I understand for a lot of products, this may be hard, but I mean, eventually now everything is going to be linked to carbon credits, carbon emissions. So that sort of a framework can be built for almost every product, and linking it to a financial piece or a financial return.
Shantanu, any example you would like to share where the team was able to overcome clients' concern or some handicap and convert it into a ladder that became an awesome growth hack?
There was an industrial IoT startup doing some stellar work in the field, and so there was a data acquisition, monitoring, and analytics type of solution for Indian industry, for MSMEs and Indian manufacturing industry. This sort of a product does not enable a direct financial return. So this is an analytics and a visualization software with a lot of data tools, with a lot of data reporting. However, this does not enable a direct financial return. So, very smartly, the founder of the company linked their visualization tool, their data analytics tool, to productivity. So, they sort of understood what was the productivity of the firm for 6 months before their technology, their hardware, their software was installed. And then, after 6 months of their hardware, software being installed, what was the productivity? And there was even close to a 30% enhancement of productivity due to better reporting, due to better alerts, due to the managers of the manufacturing plant all being aware of what is happening immediately, instantaneously, better understanding of why the downtime was caused. So, due to all of these factors, it was linked to enhancement of productivity, which gave a significant ROI in even perhaps less than 3 months. So even a product like a monitoring solution can be sort of linked to a financial return, which increases the confidence of most customers in India today.
Any word of advice for deep tech, clean tech, climate startups, Shantanu?
Yes. Deep tech, I understand that the deep tech founders, there's a huge gestation time. For product development, for R&D, it takes a significant period of time. Go to market takes a significant period of time and money. And founders may not always have enough capital to spread their R&D time, product development time for years together, go to market time for years together. What I strongly suggest to founders in the deep tech space is to go to market as soon as possible. So if you're building a whole system, which is your end solution is a system that comprises of A plus B plus C, and A will take a certain amount of time and money, B will take a certain amount of time and money, C will take a certain amount of time and money. I strongly suggest that founders, the approach they sort of try to do is try to go to market with each sub-component that is ready, that has some amount of individual value proposition for by itself. So I'll give you a very crude example. If you're say building an electric two-wheeler or an electric four-wheeler or an electric bus for that matter, there are multiple subcomponents out there that you will be building in the process. So sometimes perhaps your strategy is to build the motors in-house, to build the controllers in-house, to build the battery packs in-house, to build the control systems or the IoT parts in-house. So I would strongly suggest that you build the IoT part and start commercializing it. You build the motor, start commercializing it, go independently, go to market. Perhaps you don't need to sell to your competitors, but independently take those products to market. What that enables is that it starts enabling a healthy flow of revenue, which can enable a longer life cycle, a longer life for the startup, and can reduce the chances of actually needing to shut down due to lack of capital. So startups which have a very, very long gestation period and require a lot of money for R&D, for product development, I would strongly suggest those startups to sort of break it into parts, break it into phases. Again, I don't want to take the name of the company, but I came across a company in the drone manufacturing space wanting to build electric aviation for people, and from one place to another. That was their eventual goal. But they started by building propellers, selling it in the market, commercializing it. Their next step is building motors, commercializing it in the market. So that sort of a strategy, that sort of an approach, it gives a lot of comfort to every stakeholder, the founders, the ecosystem, the customers, incubators, accelerators, and venture capital, because the chances of death due to lack of capital actually drastically reduce this way, because everyone is more willing to fund, everyone is more willing to support, and then there is some revenue which helps the company in sustaining. So this is another strategy which can sort of enable deep tech startups to stay alive for longer and have better chances of actually achieving their goal, achieving their dream.
Kishore, coming to you for a final wrap up question, is there a word of advice you would have for the founder community out there at large?
Yes. Deep tech, I understand that the deep tech founders, there's a huge gestation time. For product development, for R&D, it takes a significant period of time. Go to market takes a significant period of time and money. And founders may not always have enough capital to spread their R&D time, product development time for years together, go to market time for years together. What I strongly suggest to founders in the deep tech space is to go to market as soon as possible. So if you're building a whole system, which is your end solution is a system that comprises of A plus B plus C, and A will take a certain amount of time and money, B will take a certain amount of time and money, C will take a certain amount of time and money. I strongly suggest that founders, the approach they sort of try to do is try to go to market with each sub-component that is ready, that has some amount of individual value proposition for by itself. So I'll give you a very crude example. If you're say building an electric two-wheeler or an electric four-wheeler or an electric bus for that matter, there are multiple subcomponents out there that you will be building in the process. So sometimes perhaps your strategy is to build the motors in-house, to build the controllers in-house, to build the battery packs in-house, to build the control systems or the IoT parts in-house. So I would strongly suggest that you build the IoT part and start commercializing it. You build the motor, start commercializing it, go independently, go to market. Perhaps you don't need to sell to your competitors, but independently take those products to market. What that enables is that it starts enabling a healthy flow of revenue, which can enable a longer life cycle, a longer life for the startup, and can reduce the chances of actually needing to shut down due to lack of capital. So, startups which have a very, very long gestation period and require a lot of money for R&D, for product development, I would strongly suggest those startups to sort of break it into parts, break it into phases. Again, I don't want to take the name of the company, but I came across a company in the drone manufacturing space wanting to build electric aviation for people and from one place to another. That was their eventual goal. But they started by building propellers, selling it in the market, commercializing it. Their next step is building motors, commercializing it in the market. So that sort of a strategy, that sort of an approach, it gives a lot of comfort to every stakeholder, the founders, the ecosystem, the customers, incubators, accelerators, and venture capital, because the chances of death due to lack of capital actually drastically reduce this way, because everyone is more willing to fund, everyone is more willing to support, and then there is some revenue which helps the company in sustaining. So this is another strategy which can sort of enable deep tech startups to stay alive for longer and have better chances of actually achieving their goal, achieving their dream.
Awesome, thanks. This brings us to the end of yet another episode. This was part 3 of the growth hacks of the thematic episode series that we launched. In our earlier episode, you heard how we have launched the world's first AI powered startup show, the Snakes and Ladders Startup Show. You also heard how we are in the process of launching the world's first AI powered deal manager, curation as a service, that's planning to help VC analysts and investment officers across this wide spectrum of VCs, angels, family offices, in terms of being able to identify the bad eggs that should be creeping into the system and the good eggs that might fall off. This tool is also an awesome tool for founders who may want to be very, very prepared before they start having their first customer conversations or their first investor conversations. Do write into us at hello@thegreatunicornhunt.com, or you could WhatsApp us at 9076427678 to download a copy of our prospectus and to engage with us in terms of how this can be built better. On that note, thank you for watching the Snakes and Ladders Startup Show. Have a wonderful day ahead.